All right, everyone. Welcome to the Capes Cast podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Jeremy.
Today, we're going to talk about a few books, but we're also going to mainly talk about the news that was announced over at the New York Comic Con. Lots of cool and exciting ideas, especially on the Marvel side. But today, we're on limited time, so want to just get into the
And it's
latest
late yet
Avengers.
again.
Yeah,
we,
we
we
want to
just
get into the
did the
latest
end.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Latest Avengers, right? Jed Mackay. He's been just killing it on the series, and the thing is I'm not really seeing many people talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a good thing because nobody's saying anything bad about it. But in my opinion, this is probably the best team book out right now, besides if
Yeah.
you count World's Finest. But besides
Right.
that, I think Avengers is even killing it. Titan's supposed to take over Justice League spot, and Avengers is killing it.
Yeah.
But pretty much what we have so far is like a 6-issue arc, and it pretty much all takes place in a moment, but we're seeing it from everybody's point of view, pretty
Right.
much.
Right. I mean,
Um,
yeah, and that's exactly what this is. Like everything that's happening in his run currently started with the Timeless issue from the end of last year.
right,
Because like he set up, for those that don't know, Jed Mackay wrote a Timeless one shot at the end of last year that set up the events of his Avengers run. It introduced a new group of heroes and who would appear to be heroes plus their advisor, and they're all based off like myths essentially. Like they're Arthur's court kind of characters. Like you have a Lancelot, you have a Percival, you have a Galahad, you have literally have an Arthur, but they just are going by like they're like rip off names almost, like they're like a play on words kind of.
right.
And then you have their Merlin, but he goes by Meridian or something.
Yeah,
It's kind of
Meridian.
what set, yeah, it's something weird. That's what kind of set the stage for everything because we have like Kang and everything he's been doing, and like he's looking for the missing moment, and that's where we learn about these like the tribulation events. The first one being like the Ashen Combine and the Impossible City.
Yes,
So that's where we're at with this arc. Is it's kind of wrapping up that first trial. Um, and what we know of the tribulation events is that only heroes can partake in them because only a hero can reach the missing moment, and that's what's been keeping Kang from reaching that moment for so long. I think it's fair to assume that that's probably what's been keeping Meridian from reaching that moment as well, because I don't think he's a hero.
right,
I mean, my theory, my going theory is that he's a version of Kang that's been lost to time or something else, or he's like a Marcus, like it could be a Mortis, it could be any version of Kang. That's just my guess. Could be wrong, could be right. We don't know. We'll see.
right,
Um, but with Avengers number 6, it kind of wraps up the battle with the Ashen Combine that each of the Avengers have had to face. And it's cool because all of these villains, we'll say, are like in direct competition with the Avenger that they face.
right,
Like you have Thor, and then you have who's a god of thunder, and then you have Idol Alabaster, which is like a false god who's like manipulating these people to worship him and give him strength.
right,
Have Wanda, who basically has the power of life and creation at her hands, facing somebody who can raise the dead. You have Captain Marvel, who's supposed to be the symbol of hope and protect people, facing against somebody who's of entropy and who's like causing things to die and perish and all these things, and vice versa. You have Vision versus that android. You've got the City Smith fighting Tony. Like they're both creators, both inventors, that kind of stuff. Like it's a cool parallel.
right,
But then you have the Impossible City as well. And up until now, we had assumed that they were working together, but that's not really the case. It's been imprisoned by them,
right,
and it's working with Captain America and Black Panther to like ensure the success of the Avengers, and but also to like liberate itself in a way. So
right.
that's kind of where things end up. Each hero wins their battle. It's like epic moments all across the board. The Impossible City liberates itself from the Ashen Combine, and we're left with like what might be a new headquarters for the Avengers.
Right.
All of the stuff that had been added onto the city has now been broken off. It's kind of like been self-destructed, I guess, in a way. So now it's just the core of the city and what it wants to do and what it wants to be, which it wants to be free. It wants to be an Avenger now.
Right.
So
So
that's
their
the
headquarters is now a sentient Avenger itself.
Exactly. And I think it's a really cool idea. It kind of plays with the Avengers Mountain concept of a giant being their base.
Right,
Instead of it being a dead god, it's now like this, sentient city that essentially gives them the opportunity to like stage plans and do these things and maybe offer its own advice in
right.
certain situations as well. And it might even have information pertaining to the missing moment or the tribulation events too. We don't know.
Yeah. We're building towards that. Because we saw in the beginning, we saw Kang
Mhm.
actually going to Captain Marvel, and
Yes.
he's basically like comatose now, right? He's like basically
Yeah.
in the hospital.
Yeah, he's down and out right now, but the next arc is going to be their confrontation, the first confrontation with the Twilight Court
Right,
and Meridian and all those characters. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing this trend of tribulation event encounter with the opposing team, tribulation event. What happens in those encounters, we don't know,
right,
but it'll be interesting to see how each of them reach. It's almost like a race. Like you're following two sets of heroes to race to the finish line, but we know what our heroes' intentions are. We don't know what this other set is. So
right,
obviously we're not going to root for them. We're just rooting for our guys.
right.
So it's cool. It's interesting. I really enjoy it. It
Yeah,
reminds me a lot of Busick's run in the 90s.
yeah. It's a so far for a first arc, I thought it was pretty great. I actually read it all like as one, and
Hmm.
it reads very well. It's going to read really well in trade.
Yeah.
Just because it's so quick. I kind of thought they were paper thin issues at first, but when you read them all at once, it's such like a quick, fun
Yeah.
kind of series.
Yeah, and it's nice because it's one of those things where like if you read it as a whole, it stands pretty well as on its own as like its own Avenger story.
Right,
But we know that it's just a stepping stone to the larger story, which I think is something that we miss in comics a lot is doing the smaller arcs that can be contained and you can tell the story on its own, but you also need to be able to connect it to like the larger plan that you have for your run.
right. It's pretty
Um,
cool.
do you want to dive into Batman City of Madness?
Yeah, Batman City of Madness, a very long awaited uh Black Label book.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Ward, man, he's doing the art and story on this, and what a cool different take on Batman, on Gotham, on everything. We basically start out with this kid coming to town, and his plan is to, basically unalive a cop. And why is that? Because he is grief stricken. A cop ended up killing his father.
Yeah.
So he's out for vengeance, like always. We have Harvey Dent basically being the in between for the main mystery of this whole thing, where underground we find out that there's a city underground, and it's been long hidden, and pretty much the keepers of this city are the Court of Owls. So we're getting the Court of Owls, and not even that, this is actually a sequel to Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum story.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's pretty much states in here. It shows him going to Arkham, and he basically says like, "Oh, I hate this place. There was a time I had to stay a whole night in here, and that's
Oh,
completely."
I didn't realize that was in reference to that. I mean,
Yeah,
I've never read that story, so
yeah, and it pretty much the art kind of changed to like Dave McKean's art from that story, just right there, where it's like really shadowy,
okay.
gritty,
Is
kind of.
is that why most of the scenes in Arkham Asylum look that way?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
So it's just pretty much to just show you like Batman changes kind of like his state of mind when he's inside
Yeah,
Arkham Asylum, because
yeah.
that book was so traumatizing to him.
What and I think what this book does really well is like the speech bubbles.
Right.
Is like every time you see a change in like Batman or Harvey or somebody else, like the letterer, whoever that is a
Yeah.
master, man. Because that is so, and it might be Christian Ward too. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the speech bubbles, the text, all of it is really cool. That's my favorite
Yeah.
part.
I mean, it's really simple to follow with all these different narratives, especially like Harvey, because in this, it's shown that Harvey isn't just Two Face anymore. He has a third face, he has a third
Right.
voice, and it's basically them as one.
Mhm.
And we're finding out that basically it's the Court of Owls trying to basically talk through Harvey in a way. I don't know how that works yet, but
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by it. Like it almost seems as if like maybe it's not the Court of Owls like themselves, but like whatever influence or whatever like thing is happening is being fed through Harvey as like the mouthpiece.
Right. And I thought it was pretty cool too. We kind of see his face like as like this instead of,
Yes.
kind
Yeah.
of see it like that. And I thought that was a pretty neat idea to do for Harvey there.
Do you think, that being said, since they've already done this and they're doing this, do you think there'll be a fourth aspect to him
I wouldn't surprise.
later on?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
I'm gonna make a long shot guess and say maybe. Well, I'll say at the end because it'll spoil the rest of
Yeah.
it.
So basically the reason what's happening underground is basically something that the Court of Owls has been keeping in that underneath Gotham has gotten out more or less, and it's pretty terrifying. Even the Court of Owls are petrified of this monster that is released.
Like
And
you have them betraying each other to keep it sealed away or to let it out because
right,
they're like divided in what they want to do with it.
exactly. But he ends up getting out, and in like you know Christian Ward fashion, it's just this Lovecraftian looking monster that is the Batman of below. And he reminds me of like that dude from Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's got that kind of Cthulhu.
Davy Jones.
Yeah, he kind of has that Cthulhu face, except with a Batman mask.
It's so funny because like when I saw him, like when I saw the Batman from below or whatever he's called, I I immediately thought of Bloodborne.
Oh, okay.
It's like there are monsters in that game that have like the tentacle face, but they're
Yeah,
like they're like and he's like hunched over, like he's like a creep, like and they kind of look that same way. So
yeah,
like my first thought was like, oh, it's like Batman from Bloodborne.
yeah. I that's pretty cool. I didn't even know that, but I
I was
think I think
good.
it's really neat that Christian Ward. Like, I was kind of hoping for this. I was
Yeah,
hoping because Andromeda was just pretty much like an underwater cosmic
very
horror
very good.
Lovecraft. It was fantastic. That's a great book. Rom V really had a lot of fun with Christian Ward's art in that. But in this, it's kind of cool to give this to Batman and give this kind of psychological horror with a Lovecraftian twist to Batman,
Yeah.
because I can't recall too many, besides like the Doom that came to Gotham. There's not too much of this Lovecraftian thing going on with Batman, and I think it's a cool change. And I really hope that they keep doing these kinds of things to Batman in these Black Label books.
Yeah. And I like, and you know me, I don't really care for traditional Batman, but if you give me a unique enough take on the character, but is still like central to what he's about, I'll probably enjoy it. I like Batman and what he stands for, but it's a lot of the stories that like drag me down.
Right. Because I mean,
But
how many times is Gotham going to be no
right,
man's
like
land,
like at least at this point we know that it's not the end of the world for Gotham for the 800th time in the last 3 weeks. It's just mysterious stuff that's going to affect Batman personally and some people in Gotham, like
Right. Because this
but
way this issue ends off is we see that boy that was trying to get revenge in the beginning is now taken hostage by the Batman of below for the
yeah,
reason that the Batman from below wants a Robin now.
yeah. My
So,
question is where did this Batman from below come from? Like has it is it because of Batman's presence in the city that it's kind of like poisoned the well in the sense that it's taken like inspiration from Batman and influence from Batman and now it's like that's what it's decided to be? Or is it like actually Lovecraftian and we can't comprehend what its actual form is, so it takes the form that most people in Gotham are scared of,
right.
which was Batman. And
That
I
could
think
be it. That
if
could be
that's the case, that is very, very cool because that's very true to like Lovecraft and what those monsters are because they're so beyond our scope of imagination. It would drive somebody mad to see their actual form.
right. And I
I,
kind of poured back at looking at this, and it kind of basically hints that Batman from below has been there down there for 100 years. So you
yeah,
could very well be right that it could have been this one thing 100 years ago, but since Batman above has changed everybody's fears
yes,
that this thing kind of adapted to turn into the
yeah.
Batman below. So
Which I think that if that's how this turns out, that is very cool, and that's awesome.
yeah,
Uh, I think what works really well, like with all of the like mystery and like the Lovecraftian cosmic horror stuff that goes on in that book, all of all of his books or all of like Lovecraftian style, like that genre is very rooted in like personal fears, like your psyche and what makes a person tick and what they're scared of.
Right, which is kind of perfect to have that whole thing and have Two-Face be the mediator,
Yes.
the in
Yeah.
between everything.
And
So
with a lot of those stories, there's a very like emotional human component, which in this book is Alfred.
right.
Like you have Alfred writing, it's he's writing the letter, right?
He writes letters every time Batman goes out, pretty much.
And
And we're
he's
kind of
always
seeing it
burning.
like, yeah, we're seeing it like a diary, kind of
Yeah.
like we're seeing like every night Batman goes out, you're kind of seeing the notes, but Alfred burns them
Yeah.
every time he writes them. So Bruce will never see them.
Right.
It's more of kind of like a venting thing for him to cope with
Right.
everything he has to see and fix, and all the stuff he does for Batman once Batman comes home at night, from
Yeah.
his nights out.
Yeah. And it's cool to see like I don't know. I think a lot while I like a lot of Elseworld stories about Batman, you don't see enough of that, I feel like. Like Alfred doing these things behind the scenes because he really feels like Bruce is his son.
Right.
And he knows the mission that Bruce is called to, and he understands that he has to do what he has to do, but he doesn't like it, like he doesn't want to see his son go out there and put himself through hell every single night to make the rest of the world a better place.
Right. Because
But
there's even a moment in here where Alfred, I forgot who he's talking to, but basically Alfred kind of hints like,
Barbara, right? It's
yeah, it was
Barbara.
Barbara. It was Barbara. And basically they're kind of like hinting at the idea of like Alfred's thinking like I failed Bruce because he has to do this crusade. I didn't heal
Yeah.
him when he was younger, so it's kind of like a thing of Alfred's feeling a lot more responsible as like a failed parent right here.
Yeah, and
So
and
it's a
that'll be
new angle
interesting.
for Batman and Alfred, I think.
Yeah, and it'll be cool to see how like since this book seems to really be about like fear and like the human psyche, it'll be interesting to see how the Batman from below plays off Alfred's fear of losing Bruce and him being scared of like everything he deals with every night.
Right.
So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff about this book, and it sucks that it's only 3 issues. But I would rather only be three and it be like a completely told story, and it's interesting all the way through.
Yeah. And just if I haven't mentioned it before, Christian Ward's art, colors,
Dang, dude.
fantastic stuff, dude. Banger of a series. It's off to a great start. And I can't believe we're already a third through it, but I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
on this ride.
Do we want to jump over to New York Comic Con announcements?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
I guess we'll start with Marvel since that seemed to be the most.
Yeah.
Um, the first big one I think is we already knew that like Krakoa was gonna end soon. That was really no surprise, but they did reveal like the next phase of things. It'll be the what is it? The rise or the fall of the House of X and the
Right.
rise of the Powers of X.
Right. And they showed the mansion.
Yeah. So the promotional art was done by Mark Brooks, because he's been doing all the promo art since Krakoa started. Um, and then you have Rise. No, sorry, Fall of the Power, or no, whatever. You have
These
one book
titles are
being
insane.
you have one book being written by Jerry Duggan, who's been writing X-Men for the last couple years, and then you have the other book being written by Kieran Gillen, who's been handling a big portion of the Krakoa stuff.
Right.
Like he's been doing Immortal X-Men, he did all of Sins of Sinister, he's still doing Immortal. He's kind of like one of the main people doing X-Men stuff right now. And then the other part of that is Al Ewing is going to be I don't he's doing a book called The Resurrection of Magneto.
Right.
And in Judgment Day, Magneto died. He asked that there be no backup of him. He had the only backup ever stored of his mind, and he destroyed it. And then he died in Judgment Day and hasn't been back. But he will be returning. There's been some like cryptic stuff being said, like, is he going to return as an enemy? Is he going to return as a friend? We don't know. Like, the path to getting him back is not going to be easy because he doesn't have the ability to be resurrected through Krakoan resurrection protocols,
Right.
So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much the big X-Men announcement. I will probably be only reading Resurrection of Magneto. I don't know that I'll be continuing on with the two big titles, 'cause it's hard. That's hard to follow along with right now. I don't really care.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of X-Men fans actually being upset that this Krakoa era is like ending,
Yeah, I mean, it's cool, but I feel like they got ahead of themselves.
Right.
I would have had a much larger investment had Hickman ran his course through it, but they're not going to say he got pushed out. They're not going to say whatever. They're going to say whatever they're going to say. But from a fan perspective, from a reader perspective, I was only in it for Hickman. And when he did not do anything else after Inferno, I was hands off with most of the X-Men stuff. I only kept going because of Gillen and Ewing, you know?
But yeah, that's the reason why I couldn't get into it, because it's like I did not know where to jump in and jump on, or and
Exactly.
once
And
I heard Hickman was out, I kind of lost interest.
exactly. And most people did.
Yeah.
New Gods trailer came out.
Yeah, looked great, by the
Yeah,
way. I'm really stoked for this series, dude.
They're really going to dive into a lot of stuff. The one thing I do want to touch on from the trailer itself, was like the first 10 seconds, man. They don't hold anything back. Like the first 10 seconds of that trailer is this new character Mia, who dresses a lot like Wynn, ironically enough, and
Right.
Ico go into the Library of Worlds, and she pulls out a book that's labeled the Black Priest 616. We haven't seen anything about those characters since before Secret Wars.
Right.
And if they're kicking around still, what does that mean for Strange?
Well, I think we saw like some of the Black Order in the recent Thor that Grunbeck did. Or no, did we not?
No.
We saw Corvus
Yeah,
Glaive.
the Black Order was there, but the Black Priests, though.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
So, like, is Strange still leading them? Have they still been around post Secret Wars? Like, it feels cool to be able to talk about like big events again, like previous events, knowing that Hickman is gonna just probably circle back around through a lot of that stuff.
Well, it just feels like Hickman's picking up where he left off almost a decade ago now, thinking about it like that. Like he was doing this whole Secret Wars setup in Avengers a whole decade ago. And I feel like he's just left threads open. He, like with the Maker doing Ultimate Universe, and, all like he's just pretty much, I feel like Hickman's kind of been doing that this whole time. Like, like his Avengers very much felt tied to his Fantastic Four run.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Like I was just gonna say that it feels like he likes telling his own like ongoing narrative, but across the entire Marvel universe. Like he doesn't really care so much about like what happens in the day to day with these characters. He would just rather tell like a bigger scope narrative and let people like follow his story rather than like, because it almost feels like the Marvel story at some point.
It
So
does.
it's cool to see him.
I wish that we could, like, I've been wishing for almost a decade since Secret Wars that we would get Hickman, just let him cook and do his own thing.
Well, then that's a perfect segue into the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, now we're getting the Ultimate Universe. I'm not really sure what's going to be in here, but we do see on the cover, we see Cap there, and it's very much looks like Ultimate Universe Cap.
Yeah, what's interesting is when they did the new Ultimate Universe, it wasn't even a panel. It was like they had him on for a few minutes to talk about it.
Right.
And they announced the books that are going to be spinning out of Ultimate Universe #1. The first one being Ultimate Spider-Man, we already knew. Hickman and
Chichetto. Oh man. I was like, this is going to be, because after Daredevil ended, I was like, if Marvel does not use Chichetto, they are doing themselves a big disservice, because Chichetto's incredible. And just knowing him and Hickman are doing this mysterious new Spider-Man, we don't know who this is.
Well, actually, we do know.
We do.
Yes. It was announced that it's going to be Peter B. Parker. It is going to be.
It was going to be. I thought he said something. It was going to be something similar or akin to like a Peter B. Parker.
So it is. It's okay. So it was. The quote is, "It's a bit of a Peter B. Parker situation," meaning that this Spider-Man is middle-aged. Like he's been Spider-Man for a long time, but we don't know how, or two, he just got the spider, but he's older. He's further along in life. If that's the case, it could be interesting to see what an adult Peter Parker does when he gets powers, because we've already seen what Peter does as a kid and he gets powers. But what happens when he's been an adult and he's been through life and then he gets powers?
Right, because the Maker is going to have to have set this up too, because he took the spider. So he planned for whoever the Spider-Man is to be Spider-Man.
But did he? Because he's also stuck in stasis with Kang and Howard. True. So is it Doom and Iron Lad that are now forming this new team? We'll see,
Yeah.
And then the second book announced was Ultimate Black Panther, which I was right, man. I was right months ago. I knew it. I knew Black Panther is going to be one of them. My other guess would have been Fantastic Four, but it's not. Black Panther is going to be written by Brian Hill, drawn by Stefano Caselli. Caselli is doing the art for Ultimate Universe 1. I don't really know too much about this.
All I know is that it's gonna have to do with Moon Knight and like, Ra
Yes.
and
Yeah, so it looks like it says Khonshu and Ra, the force known together as Moon Knight, are seeking to expand. Okay, this could be cool. I mean, I don't really know where it's going to go, but I might read this.
Yeah.
Seems
From
to
what I
have.
heard, it's gonna be like a huge thing. Brian Hill said he's gonna basically like Wakanda is gonna be like this huge.
Are we going to get like some really cool like African or Egyptian mythology stuff?
I would hope so. I mean, it would be a big disservice if we didn't get that, But I mean, Brian Hill apparently is killing it on Blade. I'm gonna have to get that trade when it comes
Yeah,
out.
I've
But
heard
apparently,
this.
he's doing a great job. So I
And
think this sounds fun. This sounds
yeah,
fun. Like Khonshu, Ra,
yeah. Well,
T'Challa.
and you already know that we're gonna have the pack. We're gonna have Bast. If you're already putting in other gods, Bast is probably gonna play a huge role because it's Black Panther's god. So we'll see. That could be a cool twist. Then we might see some more stuff like we might see this version of Black Panther be more like a Moon Knight style character,
Yeah,
where he's blessed by Bast and not necessarily gets the herb, and it's the legend of Bast and the
right,
meteorite stuff. The last title that was announced for the Ultimate line was Ultimate X-Men.
right. Which is kind of funny. I feel like Hickman just kind of kept his hands off of it. Like, nope, I'm not touching X-Men anymore. I'm not touching
Yeah,
X.
yeah, and it's cool because it's being drawn and written by Peach Momoko,
Yeah,
which there are a lot of Peach Momoko fans out there, and and those that have been following her know she's been doing X-Men related stuff for the last several years.
right.
But she did her own unique take on the X-Men universe with Demon Days, and that spun out into like a couple Avengers titles because there was like the Shield of Justice. It was like her version of Civil War.
Right.
It was cool, man. There was cool stuff. I didn't read all of it, but from what I did read, it was pretty cool. So she seems to really like the X-Men, and she's a top tier talent right now at Marvel. She's got her exclusive contract with them, so they're gonna hang on to her for a while.
Oh yeah. I mean, and her art's very cool. It's
And
I could see people like maybe getting tired of it, but for in my opinion, every time I see it, like you could see her art and it's hers. It's
yeah, exactly. Like, and it doesn't really ever dip in quality because I mean, she pumps out 1 million covers a month, dude.
yeah,
Like, so that might be the drawback is you're gonna see her put out less covers, but she's gonna have a consistent book on shelves every single month.
yeah.
And you'll probably see her do a couple variants for her own title, so on and so forth. You
And
know,
really quick, wasn't it announced also that Zdarsky is doing Avengers? He's
oh,
doing
yes,
Avengers Twilight, which
it's
is
Avengers
kind of like
Twilight.
Old Man Cap. I saw Old Man Cap on it, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like
so the story with that is Captain America is no longer around, but Steve Rogers still exists. Steve Rogers he's old. The Avengers aren't needed anymore. It's almost like this future version of Earth has, I don't, for lack of a better term, they're like fascists. Like the government has become like so messed up. All these things have happened, and Cap feels like he is obligated to help, like to fix it. But what does he
kind of sounds
do in
like
a world?
Marvel's Kingdom Come a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. And
Yeah,
it could be really good, and it could end up being like that. Um, but what happens when Steve Rogers finds himself in a world where the Avengers aren't wanted? Not necessarily not that they're needed, but they're not wanted.
right.
Because if the little clips in the trailer, like you see like Kamala and she's huge and she's got like this get up on it, looks very military, you know. But I don't know. It could be cool. It might end up being a lot like his Justice League last ride,
Yeah,
but we'll see. It could be
yeah.
interesting.
It just shocked me to see his name on there because last I heard, he said that he wasn't wanting to do anything Marvel just because he's doing Batman, which
and
makes me
and,
wonder
and
what's
this might
happening
have
with that
this
situation.
might have already been like in the works prior to that jump.
Yeah, could be.
So, and it's a mini series, so I don't think it's not going to like hold a lot of his time.
Right.
So it'll be an easy like probably 5 or 6 issue read.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Daniel Acuna's on art, and he's a great artist, so
Okay.
it'll be at least cool to look at.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see a Elseworlds Marvel. That's what Zdarsky's doing. Cool.
Yeah. Um,
And DC, speaking of Elseworlds,
I was gonna tell you, like the last, I guess we will talk about Blood Hunt because
oh
you,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Jed Mackay. I think Brian Hill is going to be doing part of it too.
Right, because he's doing Blade, so that would make sense.
Oh, it is just Jed Mackay.
Oh wow.
Jed Mackay, Pepe Larraz, Marte Garcia. Gracia, sorry. Um, so basically, Blood Hunt is like it's the next, I would say, Earth level event for Marvel. It's not quite street level because you have some of the Avengers, you have the Avengers cast in there. You're gonna have Blade, you're gonna have Spider-Man, but it's basically what happens when all of these vampires rise up and they're trying to take over Earth. It's pretty self-explanatory. The Avengers are gonna get involved, Blade's gonna get involved. It kind of seems like the story should have came out when Jason Aaron was writing the book,
Right. Well, I
but
mean, something must have happened in the Blade book because the last time I saw a Blade, it was before this new run started, but it kind of set the status quo for Blade. And he's basically there is like a there's basically a town where vampires are allowed to live. They're allowed to live, but the thing is, like Dracula is king there, but in order for everybody on Earth to be cool with these vampires just living in the city, Blade has to be the sheriff.
okay.
So it makes me wonder if Blade failed here. Like, and this is the reason why it's
Yeah, and
Dracula probably
I'm
set him
sure
up.
we'll probably see like the prologue in Blade and how it happened and what the setup is and all that, but it'll be cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah, we'll move on to DC if you want to talk about the
Yeah, man. I mean, there's not too much news about it, but we got
uh
we got Elseworlds announced, and I to me, cool. I mean, cool that we're getting like the actual imprint and title and logo back, but in my opinion, I feel like we've never really lost Elseworlds.
well,
I mean,
yeah, because
we
that's
have
what they advertised Black Label as in the beginning.
well, I thought that too, and I was like, even though Black Labels are an Elseworld, I think Black Label is supposed to be more of like this is a mature line. This is
Yeah,
like
well,
our mature.
and they were kind of disingenuous with how they marketed the Black Label imprint anyway, because you
Mhm.
had a lot of people under the like when they released The Last God by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Like it is a mature book, but it looked like an attempt for them to do like more original content, more original IPs, and not necessarily stuff that was going to be Batman or this or that or
Right.
Flash or Green Lantern or Superman. But that's what it turned into.
Yeah.
Turned into a million Batman books, a couple Wonder Woman titles, 5 or 6 or a dozen Harley books.
Oh yeah.
It just turned into the same mess they always fall into of let's just write books about characters that sell well.
Right.
It's like, if you're gonna do that, why would you even bother getting rid of the Elseworlds imprint to make this new one? Like,
Exactly. I feel like they just slapped the Black Label like logo on it because it's just like, hey, kind of thinking about it like your whiskey, your Black Label whiskey. Like this is for the adults. This is not
well,
for the
if
kids.
that's the case, they did it right when they showed me Batman's dick in the very first Black
Yeah,
Label you ever
and
put
they went
out.
back on that. So it's even like, what's the point?
Yeah,
What's
it's like, yeah, I already saw it, bro. You can't take that image out of my mind.
yeah, and even
I
then,
already
the
saw his
artist
dick.
and writer put it there, and this is supposed to be an
Yeah,
adult label. Keep it in. I mean, I don't see the big deal, but
whatever, it is what it is.
yeah, we got basically Dark Knight of Steel's getting a sequel, not done by Tom Taylor, and I don't
Or
think there was
Yasmin
really
Cici for that matter.
too much anything else that was announced on DC side. I thought
The
it was underwhelming.
the Deathstroke Barbarian book
Yeah,
was one of them. What was the other one? Oh, another DC versus Vampires title.
good lord.
Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age. I found the list. So
Okay.
Gotham by Gaslight, Kryptonian Age, which is like extending the Victorian era Batman, but we'll have the Justice League. Um, Batman the Barbarian, which is 6 issues, and it's by Greg Smallwood.
Oh, yes.
Dark Knights of Steel All Winter. So 6 issues set in the same universe. Green Lantern Dark, which is Tate Bromble and Werther Dell'Edera. It's a post-apocalyptic Green Lantern book.
Hmm.
Batman Nightfire, which is done by Clayman and his brother Seth. And
That
then
look good.
yeah, the art looks cool. Again, why? It's stupid, man. Like you could do
Yeah,
this in an anthology Batman book and you could be just fine.
right.
Or just do a Black Label Batman anthology series. I don't understand why you need a million. It's pissing me off, but
Yeah,
whatever. That's it for the Elseworlds titles, I think. Do you want me to jump into the last one?
yeah.
Last announcement was Ghost Machine. It's being it's weird because it's like kind of through Image, but also kind of its own thing, and it's all of the creative force behind the Mad Ghost universe. So like Geiger, Junkyard Joe, and all of those titles. And they're gonna be making a comeback along with their new book called The Rook. And it's Jean's and Fabok. And it'll be cool, man. It'll be really awesome.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time.
Yes,
And
sir.
chat with us on Instagram if you want to know more, if you haven't seen these announcements. Otherwise, it was great talking again. And we'll get the next one out before this next Wednesday.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of good books that came out this week I want to talk
Yeah,
about.
so we'll talk about it this weekend. Yeah.
For sure. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye, bro. See you later, guys.